Here are the stories shaping the world this morning and why they matter. The United States and Iran appear to have made significant progress in negotiations mediated by Qatar and Pakistan, with technical talks continuing in Switzerland through the rest of the week. The discussions covered Iran's nuclear program, U.S. sanctions, Lebanon, the Strait of Hormuz, and ways to reduce miscommunication between governments whose rivalry has carried real risks for millions of people across the region. Qatar and Pakistan mediated the first round of talks, and the parties agreed on a roadmap toward a final agreement within 60 days. Technical teams are continuing work in Switzerland, including at Bergenstock, as diplomats try to turn broad commitments into verifiable steps. A senior U.S. diplomat said de-escalation measures are intended to keep the Strait of Hormuz fully open, a crucial issue for global energy supplies and for households already feeling the cost of instability through fuel and food prices. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said Iran has agreed to invite International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors back into the country. That would be an important confidence-building step, because access for IAEA inspectors is central to assessing the status of Iran's nuclear program and reducing the risk of miscalculation. The talks also produced a communication line aimed at avoiding incidents and misunderstandings in the Strait of Hormuz. Mediators said the parties agreed to create a team to ensure the termination of military operations in Lebanon, and DW reported that a high-level committee will provide political oversight of the mediation. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Pakistani and Qatari mediation had delivered major progress toward ending the conflict in Lebanon. There are still major obstacles. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel will keep forces in Lebanon until any threat to Israel is eliminated. Iran has said further progress depends on addressing Israel's military campaign against Hezbollah. Still, the new diplomatic channel matters because it gives governments a structured way to lower tensions before accidents or retaliation spread. For families in Lebanon, Iran, Israel, and across the Gulf, even partial de-escalation can mean fewer air raid sirens, more reliable trade, and a better chance that daily life is not governed by crisis. Japan is urgently reworking its oil supply after the Strait of Hormuz was described as effectively closed during the U.S.-Iran conflict, sharply reducing imports and increasing pressure on energy prices. NHK said the military operation began almost 4 months ago, and Japan, like many Asian economies, depends heavily on crude oil from the Middle East. The impact has been concrete. Japanese oil imports in April fell to 35% of the previous year's level. That kind of drop affects far more than energy companies. It reaches delivery drivers, small manufacturers, farmers using fuel for equipment, families commuting to work, and older people on fixed incomes who have little room to absorb rising utility costs. Japan's government has responded by looking for supplies from the United States and other regions that do not necessarily require passage through the Strait of Hormuz. The industry ministry forecast that alternative supplies in June would total more than 70% of the same month last year. The government has also released oil from national stockpiles and subsidized fuel prices. In April, Japan spent about 310 billion yen, or roughly $1.9 billion, on subsidies to help control fuel prices. Average regular gasoline prices were kept around 170 yen per liter, or just over $1. Those subsidies are expensive, but they can give households and small businesses time to adjust, especially when a global shock is outside their control. Energy security expert Kutanashiro called the situation an unprecedented and unexpected crisis. The lesson for policymakers is not only about emergency oil routes, but also about long-term resilience. Diversifying supply, improving public transport, and speeding up cleaner domestic energy can protect consumers from future shocks. For now, Japan is trying to prevent a strategic crisis from becoming a cost-of-living emergency for ordinary people. Cuba has announced a broad package of economic reforms under pressure from the Trump administration, but the island remains in a severe fuel and power crisis. A France 24 report from Havana described rationing, unaffordable fuel, trash piling up in streets, and residents receiving only brief daily electricity service. The Cuban government described the reforms as a gradual liberalization of the communist regime, but the immediate hardship is centered on fuel. Washington's oil blockade, imposed in January, was reported to have deepened an already severe crisis. Residents said there had been no fuel for 5 months. Garbage trucks stopped running, leaving trash to accumulate in public spaces, creating health concerns and making daily life harder in neighborhoods already under strain. The price structure has made the crisis especially unequal. Fuel is priced in dollars, while most Cubans earn pesos. One resident described gasoline costing at least $7 a liter. Fuel purchases are rationed through an app, but residents describe connectivity problems that can block access. For people without reliable phones, data, or internet service, a digital rationing system can become another barrier rather than a fair solution. Electricity is also severely limited. Power plants are running on restricted fuel, and Cuba's aging grid is under strain. Cubans were reported to receive about 2 hours of power a day, sometimes less. That affects refrigeration, medical equipment, schoolwork, food preparation, and the ability of small businesses to operate. Some residents blame the outside blockade. Others criticize inequality and government leaders. Both pressures can be true at once. External sanctions can deepen scarcity, while domestic policy choices can determine who bears the greatest burden. The reforms may open some economic space, but Cubans facing dark homes, expensive transport, and uncollected waste need practical relief now. Humanitarian exemptions, reliable energy access, and accountability in distribution would matter more to families than political slogans from any side. A major heat wave has brought red alerts across parts of Europe, including much of western and central France, as authorities warn of dangerously high temperatures. France placed much of the country, including Paris, under red alert, with temperatures expected to reach 41 degrees Celsius. Officials said the heat wave could be as serious as the August 2003 heat wave in France. The weather pattern has been described as the African anticyclone, a high-pressure system moving north from the Sahara Desert. Public events have been adjusted or canceled in France, Germany, and Spain. France's Fête de la Musique went ahead with a theoretical ban on public alcohol consumption. Germany delayed the Berlin Open tennis final and cleared the venue because of extreme weather. Spain canceled a public screening of the national team's World Cup match. Public health officials are emphasizing caution because heat does not affect everyone equally. Outdoor workers, older people, infants, people without air conditioning, and those living in poorly insulated housing face the greatest risks. The World Health Organization said 200,000 people across the European Union have died due to heat since 2022. That figure underscores that extreme heat is not just uncomfortable weather. It is a public health and labor issue. Constructive responses can save lives. Cities can open cooling centers, extend access to water, adjust work schedules, check on isolated residents, and protect workers from being forced to labor through unsafe heat. Longer term, climate adaptation means more shade, greener streets, better housing standards, and emergency plans that treat heat as seriously as storms or floods. For families across Europe, the immediate advice is simple. Stay hydrated, avoid the hottest hours when possible, look after vulnerable neighbors, and take official alerts seriously. For governments, the challenge is broader. Build communities that can withstand a hotter climate without leaving the poorest residents to face the danger first. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Monday that he will resign as leader of the ruling Labour Party, but remain Prime Minister until a new party leader is chosen. The announcement follows major Labour setbacks in large-scale local elections last month, and Andy Burnham's lower house by-election win on Thursday. Starmer said, "Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first." He said nominations for the Labour leadership election will open next month, and the party is expected to choose a new leader in the coming month. This is a major moment for the British government because the Labour leader is also the Prime Minister while Labour holds power. Starmer's decision creates a transition period in which the government must continue handling public services, the economy, housing, immigration policy, energy costs, and relations with Europe while the party chooses its next leader. Andy Burnham has signaled interest in running for Prime Minister. Analysts cited by NHK said Burnham would likely prevail in a party leadership contest if he ran. Burnham has long been associated with a more regionally focused politics, particularly through his work in Greater Manchester, and his rise would be closely watched by local governments, unions, and voters who want more attention to wages, transport, housing, and public services outside London. The risk in any leadership contest is that public business slows while political factions compete. The opportunity is that a governing party can respond to voters' concerns without waiting for a general election. Labour's setbacks suggest frustration with delivery and direction. For working families, the question will be less about internal party drama and more about whether the next leader can improve pay, reduce waiting times, expand affordable housing, and make daily life feel more secure. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said upgraded Ukrainian drones struck Russian oil-related facilities, including a site in Russia's western Siberian region of Tyumen, more than 2,000 kilometers from the border. He described the attacks as a fully justified response to Russian strikes against Ukraine. Zelensky said Ukraine also struck targets in Crimea, including an oil depot. Russia unilaterally annexed Crimea in 2014. Ukraine also struck an oil refinery in Moscow last Thursday. Analysts said Kyiv hopes repeated attacks on oil-related facilities will help force Russia to accept peace. The strategy is aimed at Russia's war economy. Oil revenues and fuel infrastructure are central to Moscow's ability to sustain military operations. By targeting refineries, depots, and processing sites, Ukraine is trying to raise the cost of continued aggression while avoiding a direct conventional match with a much larger military. The expanded range of Ukrainian drones shows how quickly the technological side of the war is changing. But the human cost remains immediate. Kyiv said Russian strikes through Saturday killed 7 people. Zelensky urged Ukrainians to take air raid alerts especially seriously, saying Russia had prepared for new massive strikes. For civilians, that means interrupted sleep. Children moved into shelters, damaged homes, and workers trying to keep essential services running under threat. Ukraine's partners face a difficult balance, supporting Kyiv's defense while pushing for conditions that could lead to a durable peace. A just settlement would have to address sovereignty, security guarantees, reconstruction, and accountability. For now, Ukrainians continue to live with the daily reality of war, while the conflict increasingly reaches deep into Russia's own energy infrastructure. More than 2 million students in India retook an undergraduate medical entrance exam after authorities scrapped the first results over a suspected paper leak. The retest was held Sunday morning under heavy security, with frisking, jammers, police, paramilitary officers, and cameras at exam centers. The National Testing Agency invalidated the first exam, held May 3rd after an alleged paper leak through a social media app. The breach remains under investigation. The agency said security cameras were installed in more than 95,000 test rooms for the retest. The scale of the disruption is enormous. More than 2 million students had prepared for a life-changing exam that can determine access to medical education, career paths, and family futures. Many families spend years and significant income on coaching, travel, application fees, and study materials. When an exam is compromised, the damage is not only administrative, it is emotional and economic. Students who played by the rules are forced to relive the pressure because the system failed to protect fairness. The controversy triggered protests across India. Supporters of India's Cockroach Janta Party rallied in New Delhi on Saturday, demanding that the education minister resign. The party was described as a youth-driven political movement that began as an online protest. The broader issue is trust. India's exam system carries the hopes of millions of young people, especially those from families who see education as the clearest path to stability. Stronger safeguards are needed, but security alone cannot be the answer if it turns test centers into intimidating spaces without addressing leaks at their source. Transparent investigations, accountability for those who profit from fraud, and fair support for affected students are essential. A credible exam system should protect both merit and dignity. Australian police seized 2.7 tons of cocaine at a semi-rural property west of Sydney, calling it the country's largest ever cocaine seizure. Authorities estimated the street value at about 816 million Australian dollars and said the haul equated to roughly 3 million street-level deals. Federal police arrested 2 men after cocaine was found hidden in plastic tubs buried beneath shipping containers. The investigation began after 40 kilograms of cocaine was found in Queensland. Police suspect the drugs were brought from abroad on a vessel later seized in the Solomon Islands. The case highlights Australia's role as a high-profit market for international drug trafficking. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime says cocaine usage and prices are high in Australia, creating strong incentives for criminal groups. The UNODC also says drugs are trafficked into Australia via Pacific Island nations with relatively weak monitoring systems. A seizure of this size is a major law enforcement success, but it also points to the need for regional cooperation. Pacific Island nations often have limited resources for maritime monitoring, customs enforcement, and financial crime investigations. Supporting those systems can help prevent criminal networks from exploiting smaller countries as transit points. There is also a public health dimension. Cocaine trafficking fuels organized crime, but addiction and drug-related harm are felt by families, health workers, and communities. Enforcement can disrupt supply, while treatment, prevention, and harm reduction can reduce demand and save lives. A durable response needs both: strong action against organized crime and compassionate support for people at risk of addiction. A school shooting in Tacloban City on the central Philippine island of Leyte killed 3 students and injured 11 others on Monday morning. Police detained 2 male students, ages 14 and 15, who allegedly opened fire at a government-run high school. Police quoted the suspects as saying bullying motivated the attack. The injured students were hospitalized. For the families of those killed, the loss is immediate and irreversible. For classmates, teachers, and parents, the trauma will last far beyond the school day. Schools are supposed to be places of safety, routine, and possibility. When violence enters a classroom or campus, it shakes the trust that children and families depend on. The reported motive will raise difficult questions about bullying, youth mental health, school security, and access to weapons. Bullying is never an excuse for violence, but it is a warning sign that must be taken seriously. Students need trusted adults, reporting systems that work, and school cultures where cruelty is addressed before it escalates. The response should center victims and prevention. That means counseling for survivors and families, support for teachers, a careful investigation into how the attack was planned, and a review of whether earlier warnings were missed. It also means treating student safety as more than policing. Inclusive classrooms, mental health care, anti-bullying programs, and community engagement can all help reduce the risk of future violence. Tokyo Metropolitan Police have arrested a suspected senior member of Prince Holding Group, a Cambodia-based conglomerate sanctioned by U.S. authorities over alleged large-scale online fraud. The arrest involves suspected falsification of residence documents. Police arrested a 44-year-old suspect identified as Husi and 2 Chinese nationals. Authorities believe they were involved in falsifying Husi's residence documents. Investigative sources said Husi serves as representative director of a company in Tokyo and is suspected of being a senior member of Prince Holding Group. U.S. authorities have sanctioned Prince Holding Group, accusing it of large-scale online fraud and describing it as one of Asia's largest transnational criminal organizations. The Cambodian government detained the group's chairman, Chen Zi, and extradited him to China in January. Investigators said Husi told them a representative handled all transactions involving his residence documents. The 2 Chinese suspects denied the allegations. The case reflects the increasingly cross-border nature of online fraud. Scam operations can involve shell companies, forged documents, migrant labor, digital platforms, and victims in multiple countries. People targeted by these schemes are often ordinary workers, retirees, or families persuaded to transfer savings through fraudulent investment or romance scams. The financial losses can be devastating, and victims often feel shame even when they were deliberately manipulated by professional networks. For law enforcement, document cases can be one way to reach larger alleged criminal structures. For governments, the broader task is cooperation. Sharing intelligence, protecting trafficking victims who may be forced into scam work, tracing money flows, and making it harder for criminal groups to hide behind legitimate business registration. Armed groups in Colombia have increasingly used social media platforms, including TikTok and Instagram, to recruit young people as the country's conflict has intensified in recent years. France 24 reported that recruitment videos have flooded social media, aimed particularly at young people. The report described a TikTok post published by a young man belonging to a paramilitary group and said such groups continue to sow chaos in Colombia. The method is modern, but the vulnerability is familiar. Armed groups often target young people who feel excluded from work, education, safety, or political power. Online platforms can make recruitment look glamorous, immediate, and personal, while hiding the violence, coercion, and long-term consequences that follow. For families, the threat can begin on a phone. Parents and teachers may not know that a teenager is being contacted, praised, pressured, or promised money by people connected to armed groups. Communities already affected by conflict face an added burden when recruitment moves from remote areas into digital spaces used every day. The response has to be more than taking down individual posts. Platforms need stronger moderation in conflict settings and better cooperation with civil society groups that understand local risks. Governments need prevention programs that offer young people real alternatives: school access, jobs, mental health support, sports and arts programs, and safe ways to report recruitment attempts. Peacebuilding is not only negotiated in capitals, it is also built in classrooms, neighborhoods, and online spaces where young people decide what future feels possible. Follow for a daily world brief. Sources are linked in the description. That's the world as Minerva saw it.